Yeah, hello everyone. This is Soumya. Well, in my last video, I explained the introduction to the Mendelism, how he had considered the pea plant for his experiment and how he carried out the experiment and all. And in that video, I also told you that after his experiment, he came to certain conclusions. He drew certain principles and laws. So, what are those laws and the principles that he drew out of his experiment? That will be discussed in this video. Well, I told you that in my last video, I discussed or I explained how he had considered the characteristic features. So he had taken certain parameters while before even beginning the experiment with the pea plants. He had taken the dominant and the recessive characters, and luckily, whatever the characters he had considered in that pea plant, he got the both the dominant and the recessive characters for that particular the features for that particular character, and he was so lucky to get the whatever the result he was expecting. So out of the results he drew three principles. That is the laws. There's law of dominance, law of segregation, and law of independent assortment. Here in our university syllabus, they have considered only the law of segregation and the law of independent assortment. But I'll explain the law of dominance even. Law of dominance is nothing but always deal with the expression of the dominant gene by suppressing the recessive gene. Obviously, when you look into the genes or a chromosomes, they are diploid in condition. Two sets of chromosomes will be there. For that matter, in a pure line section, he had taken the pure lines as a parental combinations, that is pure tall plant and pure dwarf plant. When it comes to the hybrid in the F1, they'll be having both the genes, the genes responsible for the tallness and the genes responsible for the dwarfness. But in the phenotype, the individual expresses only the dominant character. That is, the plant will be tall. So in that from that experiment, he concluded a law, that is law of dominance. So irrespective of the genes that is present for the recessive character, always the dominant gene will expresses. That is law of dominance. Later on, various other geneticists have performed various experiments and conclude that the law of dominance will never stand. I mean, there is a deviation from that particular law of dominance that we'll be discussing in the later videos. And the next one is law of segregation. See here in this picture, it actually explains. So this is a F1 hybrid where it is having the genes for both the characters, that is capital T for dominant character and small t for recessive character. This is for the tallness and this is for the dwarfness. Here, when the F1 hybrid, there is a self hybrid for the F1 when they undergo self cross. So there will be the segregation of the gametes. During the gamete formation, it is so clear that both the genes, both the characters, the genes which carry, which codes for the characters will segregate separately. There is no clubbing of the genes. The genes will remain its purity and they'll segregate separately. That is the law of segregation. So again, there will be the combinations in the F2. We can, because of the segregation of these genes, the dominant and the recessive genes, they do segregate so purely and clearly that we can expect all these four combinations in the F2 generation. So this explains law of segregation. So during the formation of the gametes, the two alleles which are responsible for a character or a trait will segregate in a pure line. There is no combined or the recombined fertilization process. Even when they come together, the dominant character expresses and the recessive character suppresses. But during the formation of the gamete, both the genes segregate independently, and there will be the formation of the four different offsprings in the F2 generation. So that's what law of segregation explains. Whereas the law of independent assortment, here he had taken an example of two characters. It's a dihybrid cross, which is considering the two characters, that is the seed shape and seed color. Here, the capital R represents the seed shape, that is a dominant round, and yellow represents the dominant seed color, white, capital Y. And the recessive part of it, green and wrinkled. So small r represents the green, and small y represents the small r represents the wrinkle and the small y represents the green. So these are the recessive character. This is what we call the pure line. Both the dominant genes and both the recessive genes. If the parents are having both the dominant and both the recessive genes, then it is called a pure line, pure lines. So in the parental generation, he had taken the pure line, round yellow and the green wrinkled parents. So in the F1 generation, he'll get the hybrid, that is the round and the yellow. But the phenotype of that individual is decided by the dominant genes which are having, that is the round and the yellow. But along with the dominant genes, the recessive genes are also present. So that is the hybrid. When this F1 generation, F1 offspring undergo self-fertilization, we can expect, see, without expecting anything, he got 16 different combinations of offsprings. So when the 16 different combinations of offsprings had got obtained, he concluded that whatever the genes are there, whatever the alleles are there, they have got segregated independently. That is what the law of assortment explains. So irrespective of the influence of dominant and the recessive factors. So you will get the combinations of all these, round and yellow dominant, both dominant, round and green, one dominant, one recessive, wrinkled and yellow, one dominant, one recessive, wrinkled and green, both are recessive. So in all these combination, we'll get the gametes, and the combination, the like what's that, the combination, I mean the overall total population of the F2 will be 16, because all the possible ways the gametes had been segregated and they have been fused in the F2 generation. So that is what law of independent assortment explains. Yeah, to conclude with, in this video, I explained the law of dominance, law of segregation, and law of independent assortment. And all these laws have been concluded by the Mendelian experiment that he had done with the pea plants. And he was so lucky to get the results, whatever he was expecting, because pea plants were not having any discrepancies were not there in that experiment. Any overlappings were not there. Whatever the characters he had taken, whatever the traits he had taken, all those traits were giving the good results. And with that results, he concluded the three laws, that is the law of dominance, law of independent assortment, and law of segregation in the Mendelism. And these are the references I referred for this particular video content. Thank you.